Hello. Today I wanted to create a video to give you an overview of the LightStanza software and also provide a demo to show you some of the features and how they work. Just a warning, this is going to be a long video, so you might want to hit pause and grab another cup of coffee. But by the end of this video, you should have a great idea of what LightStanza is and what it's capable of, and also know where key features are and how to use the software. So we are LightStanza. We are the next generation of lighting calculation software. And we are very different compared to the legacy software that people have been using for a long time in the industry. We are cloud-based, and there are some distinct advantages of that. Number one, it allows us to provide a platform for collaboration, but we're also faster because I will always be limited on the complexity of calculations that I can run on my laptop. Even though it's a gaming laptop, it's faster than most laptops, I will always be limited by that as far as complexity and the speed of calculations. But what is always going to be faster than my laptop are servers in a data center. And by doing that, we've moved from a one-person, one-machine model to a many-people, many-machine model. And there are some distinct advantages of that. With our software, you can run up to 5 calculations for electric lighting users, and that's going to allow you to get your work done so much faster. If you think about the average bill rate in the industry being $175 an hour, being able to hit that calculate button and continue to work, either run additional calcs or be able to jump back into Revit and continue to work there, we feel that that's pretty transformational to the industry. This is the conventional design approach up here at the top. I was a lighting designer for 20 years, so I went through this approach many times. And I'm not going to go through all this in detail, but the idea here is that we usually start within a 3D BIM program like Revit. We have all this amazing 3D BIM geometry, and then we start exporting it to different formats. We clean those formats up. We bring it into a lighting design program. We do our design, and then we want to get it back into that Revit and that 3D BIM. This is not a very efficient process, and I can attest to this having done it many, many times. And you also lose fidelity with your design every time you go through this process. So we have all this great 3D BIM geometry, but then we typically export it to a 2D platform, and then we have to recreate all of that 3D geometry ourselves, which once you go through that and do that, you're really just recreating a block caricature of all of this amazing 3D information that you already had in BIM, which is not an efficient process. With LightStanza, our approach is to integrate with BIM, be able to send information from programs like Revit to LightStanza, and then back into Revit. So we're trying to circumvent this entire process that is just terribly inefficient. So what does that mean for our users in terms of efficiencies? Well, we have been very interested to know this ourselves. So we've done a deep dive with our users on these different factors. And what we're being told is that we are at least 50% faster than our competing software, which I think 10 to 20% faster would be pretty transformational for our industry. But the fact that we're 50% faster and higher, I think that speaks to how well we do things and the power of cloud computing. This is our software comparison chart. This is us compared to a lot of the other software that's out there in the industry right now. I think most people listening to this video are probably the most interested in these first two. With AGI, you're typically working with a 2D format like CAD. You're redrawing all of your geometry on top of it. This is kind of that inefficient process that we were talking about earlier. With Loom tools, it does integrate with BIM, but there are a ton of pain points with it. There are a lot of limitations with it. People don't typically like this program, and whenever they see our software, they're typically way more apt to use our software than continuing to use Loom tools. And with these two programs, you probably have copies of both of these at your firm. But these are two different user interfaces that have to be learned. These programs do not talk to each other. There isn't really an ability for collaboration. So having two pieces of software to do the same work also adds a level of inefficiency to the whole process. And at LightStanza, we are very passionate about allowing people to do their work in the way that makes sense to them. I've already mentioned that we have full Revit integration, but if you have other 3D formats like Rhino or SketchUp, we can bring those in too. We also can do 2D formats, CAD, DXF, PDFs, right? We're trying to give you the maximum flexibility to use our software in a way that works for you with the formats that you're used to. So what we've tried to do is do what everybody else does all under one package. So there's only one piece of software to learn, and we can get people going really fast because we're so user friendly. So that's a general overview of the software. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into the demo. Our software is web-based, so it's as easy as going to the internet, open your web browser, go to lightstanza.com. It's going to make sure that I'm not a bot here. But because you log into the web, you can use us from any computer. And by any computer, I mean your work computer, your home computer, maybe you've got a Mac at home. You can also use LightStanza on a Mac. So that's just another way that we try to give you maximum flexibility. I'm going to go up to login here. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Go ahead and ignore this page for right now. I will cover it a little bit later. I'm going to go up here to new design, start with a blank canvas. And now I'm in the software. So I'm just going to go to my plan view here. I don't have a plan loaded, but I do have a PDF of a floor plan on my desktop. I'm just going to drag and drop that over. And now you can see we've got a floor plan here. So I'll zoom in. I want to make sure that this is scaled. So I'm going to right click on it, do measure and scale. I'm going to measure a known point like this doorway. This door is probably not 2.58 feet. It's probably 3 feet. And now my background is scaled. I don't have a room here yet, so I'll go over to Simple Modeler here. I have the option to draw a room or a shape, the difference between these two being that if I draw a room, it will put my calc points in for me. So I'll just pick a box. I'll drag and drop over this space, and now I have a room with my calc points. And as I drop this room in, you can see that all the properties for this room pop up. I can go over here and change it to 12 feet. Now that room is 12 feet tall. If I wanted to change my calc grids, I could just right click on it, go to edit. You can see here I can change the height. Maybe we'll change the height to 3 feet, and we'll change the spacing to 3 feet. I hit OK, and you can see that that has changed over here. And if I drew this room the wrong size, or maybe my plan changes later, I can just grab these grips down here and resize this room on the fly. I don't have to delete this room and redraw it and try and recreate all of those properties. So that's another way that we try to give you maximum flexibility in being able to change things once you've brought them in. So I have my room, I've got my calc grids, but I don't have any light fixtures yet, so I'm going to come over to our electric lighting menu. This pops up. There's nothing populated here. So I'm just going to take this IES file that I have on my desktop, drag and drop that in, and you can see LightStanza is ready to place this. This room is 12 feet tall, but since this is a recess fixture, I'm going to go ahead and make it 11.99 feet tall. And now it's as simple as clicking, and I get my distance snaps here that show me how far away I'm placing these fixtures from the last fixture that I placed. We can also do emergency calculations within the same calc with LightStanza. Once I expanded this family, you can see that there is a percentage for this emergency fixture. I could say this is 100% if we had a generator. If it was a battery, I would derate it by a percentage here, so that's where I would do that. But once I have that information and that's set appropriately to make a fixture emergency, it's as simple as right-clicking on it and telling it that it's emergency. You can see that that EM popped up there. So now I have a room Calc grids and my light fixtures. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here to calculate. So I'm going to start off by doing grid illuminance. We'll do a normal lighting calc. I'll go back up and start a calculation for my emergency lighting. And I'm going to pick a point in this room and say view location in 3D. Once I'm in here, now I can start calculating my renderings. Let's do a luminance rendering. Let's also do an illuminance rendering. And you can see that all 4 of these calculations are running at the same time. That's the power of cloud computing that I was talking about earlier. If I wanted to keep working, I could go back to my lighting plan view. I could create a copy of this design by hitting this branch button here. Once I do that, it opens up a new tab in my web browser, and you can see that it copied all of that information over. So I could go up to this fixture, say you're not emergency, go down to this fixture, tell it that it's emergency, delete this fixture, move this light fixture down here, and now I can be running calculations on this variation as well. So hopefully you see that with our software, we allow you to keep working. You're never dead in the water. And if I continue to run calculations beyond the 5 per person that we typically allow, it will queue those up and it will run them as soon as my previous calculations are done. So if I go back to my original design, you can see that all of these calculations are done. And I can click on this. I can view my calc results with a heat map. I can adjust this with the slider here, depending on the story that I'm trying to tell to my client. So we try and provide maximum flexibility there. If I wanted to change any of my other view settings, I would just hit this gear next to it. I could change my decimal precision. I could get rid of that heat map if I don't like to see it, if I just want to focus on my numbers. So we try and provide you a maximum amount of flexibility in how you want to view your data. I can also go to a report for this space. Here you can see I've got my floor plan with my results. It gives me my summary here of my average mins, max mins. We also provide you with lighting power density so that you can track that easily. And we provide a luminaire schedule of all of the fixture types that are associated with this design. I could print this as a PDF and share it with the client if I wanted to. I could share this report via a link with somebody as an email. If I was really proud of a design, I could also post it to Twitter. But we also give you the ability to download your report files. So if I hit this button, a zip file opens up down here. I open this zip file. I've got a luminaire schedule in Excel format. I've got a DXF of my data if I wanted to bring this into another program like CAD or Revit. We also give you a PowerPoint template so that you can open this and drag and drop any of these pieces of data onto it and organize your data in the way that you want to provide a presentation to your client. So again, maximum flexibility with your data here. If I go to my emergency calc, I have light only around my emergency fixture, so that makes sense. If I go to view this report, I can view my rendering. I've got all of my lighting information here in this rendering. And then we also provide false color renderings, so you can adjust this on the fly, again, depending on the story that you're trying to tell to someone. Earlier I mentioned collaboration. That's another thing that we allow you to do. So if I wanted to share this rendering with a client, I would go comment on this activity. I would hit plus, enter the client's email address, and say, hey, client, take a look at this. If I could type. If I hit save, it's going to send an email to the client with a link. The client clicks that link. It will bring them into LightStanza, and they will be able to see my comment and what I commented on. With it being sent to a client, it arrives to them read-only, so they can view the information, but they can't make any changes. But we also allow you to collaborate with your teammates. So if I hit @ here, all of my team members that I've invited to LightStanza, their emails will automatically populate here. I could type a comment to them, check out this rendering. If I hit save, it sends a link to my teammate. They click that link, brings them into LightStanza. They are on my team, so they can make changes. So that's something important to keep in mind. We also allow you to communicate directly with LightStanza within the app. Maybe this rendering didn't look right for some reason. You would just type plus support at LightStanza. Hey, this doesn't look right. Just pretend that I typed that correctly. I hit save. This goes to our support team. They usually give you a response within an hour or two about any problems that you're having. So with this collaboration, we allow you to communicate with your clients, your teammates, and with us directly. So that's another great benefit of being on the cloud. What I've just shown you is more of our 2D workflow. This is more of an AGI traditional workflow where you would start with a 2D format, draw your spaces, and bring in your light fixtures. But we also have a 3D format that I'm going to show you really soon after we go back to that original page that opened up when I signed into LightStanza. One of the things that we want to allow people to do is be able to see each other's work and have access to each other's projects. As your teammates sign up and become members of your team, they will have a folder where their work will go into. So if I was out sick for a week or two, someone could click on my folder, go into my folder, see all of the projects that I'm working on. Once they click on my project, we have this history bar over here that will provide them the history of the project from the first calcs that I ran all the way through to where I ended up with my design. So that history bar will tell a story to whoever is viewing my work. That way they can communicate more intelligently with a client while I'm gone. So that's another great feature, but you can also organize this information however you want. You could create new folders and organize your work by team. You could organize your work by project. So we try and give you the maximum amount of flexibility for how you want to organize your work. At my previous firm, I think we had 38 servers, one for each office, and we had thousands of projects scattered across those servers, so finding work was really difficult. So with LightStanza, we bring all of your lighting work into one location and make it easy for you to access at any time. So this was our 2D workflow. Now I'm going to get into what we call our 3D workflow, which is our Revit integration. Here I have a Revit model, and I have installed the free LightStanza plugin from the LightStanza website and installed it. Once I do that, I get this LightStanza tab in Revit. So now I want to send this small school, it's probably about 10 classrooms with some support spaces, into LightStanza so I can start doing my lighting design. So I'm going to go up to this Export to LightStanza button. This window is going to pop up and talk to you about what LightStanza is actually going to export and what it's going to do. Even though I'm in this 2D plan view, whenever I hit OK, you'll see that it's actually going to pull from a 3D view. So the important thing here is that if I had a scope box around part of this building, LightStanza is only going to look at what's in that scope box, and then also the categories and things that I'm going to be exporting to LightStanza are going to pull from this 3D view. So it's important that those categories are shown in this 3D view. So I hit the export button. This is our export menu that pops up. You can export the entire model to LightStanza, but if you didn't want to do that, you could come in here and select, hey, I want to send the whole first floor. Or maybe you only want to focus on a few specific spaces. Maybe you're only doing some typical spaces. You can also export just those spaces into LightStanza, which will make it a much faster export. For this demonstration, I'm going to export the entire model. And now I would go down to my Revit categories and choose what categories I want to export. Maybe I wanted to select all of my categories. You can definitely do that. The export to LightStanza will be slower because we still follow the laws of physics, so the more data that you bring in, the longer it will take. You can also hit minimal, which will just bring in like things like ceilings, walls, roofs, basic building geometry. For this demonstration, I'm going to bring in a few more things than just the basic. I'm going to bring in furniture systems, and I'll also bring in the casework. So now that I've selected the Revit categories that I want to bring into LightStanza, I can decide if I want to bring my electric lighting data in or not. Maybe you've done a rough layout in Revit already, so you'd want to include your light fixtures and your families to come in. Maybe you're getting this Revit model from somebody else. They did a layout. You're not very confident in it, so you could exclude that information and just start with the blank building geometry without your light fixtures. For this demonstration, I'm going to include them. LightStanza also gives you the ability to auto-create your grids. We can do it by rooms or spaces. We even highlight where LightStanza is finding that information. So for this particular model, the architect created rooms, so I've selected that. And then you can pick your Calc grid height. It defaults to 30 inches, but I could come down to custom and create a custom Calc plane height. They're all going to come in at the same height, but if you have to change things later, hopefully you saw earlier with my demonstration, it's really easy to change your heights of your Calc grids on a case-by-case basis. So that shouldn't be too much of a concern. So now that I've gone through and selected what I want to bring into LightStanza, I'm going to hit the export button. Right now, LightStanza and Revit are doing a handshake. LightStanza is telling Revit what information it wants from Revit, and Revit is starting to send that information into LightStanza. This is going to be the longest wait you're going to have with our software, is this initial upload, because it is pulling in all of that information at once. If you did have just a few changes in your Revit model, some light fixtures changed location, you don't have to re-export the entire model again. We have the Send Changes button in LightStanza, or in Revit, sorry. If I had a few changes, I would just hit that button. It would send the changes over to LightStanza, and that process happens quite a bit faster. And I will demonstrate that for you today so you can see what that looks like. So again, this is the longest part, is bringing this model in for the first time. But because this is being done on our cloud servers, I'm not dead in the water. I could go back to Revit and be working within Revit right now. I could also open up another design within LightStanza and be working in that secondary design. So because of the cloud and because this is being done on our servers, that frees your computer up to keep working. So start your import, grab a cup of coffee, continue to work. With LightStanza, it doesn't matter. I could even close this window right now in the middle of this, and it will keep running on the cloud servers, and I can come back to this later after it's finished uploading. A few other features that we provide in our plugin. I'll go ahead and window this so that you can see when this is done. Oh, it looks like it's finishing right now. We can also load LightStanza parameters into your Revit families so that you can change your IES file lengths in Revit so that when you export to LightStanza, those will come in at the right length. So we do provide some other flexibilities within this plugin to make your workflow faster coming into LightStanza. But it looks like we have all of the building geometry here with all of our light fixtures. So I'm going to zoom in here on this Explorer 2 classroom. You can see that we've got these red warning symbols on our light fixtures. That means that there isn't an IES file associated with that light fixture. If we would have assigned IES files in Revit, those would have come in. But for this demonstration, we wanted to show you how easy it is to change once your families come in without IES files. So once I select this fixture, it moves it to the top over here in my lighting families. You can see as I hover over this, it highlights all of the same fixtures of that type. This is fixture type A. Where it says no IES file, I will select that. This is where I can upload a new IES file. Your firm can also build their own IES file library if there's fixtures that you commonly use, you could pull directly from there. I'm going to just pull in that same IES file that I had on my desktop. I hit that, and now you can see that warning symbol went away, and all of the light fixtures have been assigned with an IES file for that type. I could run this entire building if I wanted to. That's going to take longer, so for this demonstration I'm going to select this room, right-click, and do crop to space, and now I've temporarily hidden all of that other geometry and all of those other light fixtures. So this calculation will run much faster. So I'll go up here, I'll hit grid illuminance, we'll start a calc for this. I'll also select a spot in this room, right click, view the location in 3D. And you can see here that we've got all of this amazing 3D geometry that came in from Revit. We have our casework with handles, we've got our cove up here, right? We've got some of this furniture information, we've got some paper towel dispensers. So instead of starting from scratch and trying to just recreate all of this geometry, we were able to pull it in from Revit. And this is going to make our lighting calculations more accurate because we have this information. And it's also going to make our renderings look a lot nicer to show to a client because it's the actual geometry from Revit. So I'll go ahead and start running a rendering now. We'll run a luminance rendering. Again, both of those calculations are stacking. So now that we're in this 3D view, I wanted to show you how easy it is to add calc grids in 3D. So I can go up to my illuminance grids here. It's this tic-tac-toe button. I'll hit add and we'll do from surface. And now I can pick any surface in this room, select it, and now my calc grids have been added. So we try and make it really easy. I know in other software, adding points in 3D can be very, very challenging. As somebody who's used those pieces of software before, I can definitely attest to that. With us, it's as easy as point and click. We can also add a square stamp on a surface, a 10 by 10 stamp. I can place that. It's a 10 by 10 size, but once it's in, again, I've got these grips. I can change the size to whatever size that I want. We also give you some cool functionality like being able to rotate it if you wanted to. And then we can also change the angle of it and flip it too really easily. So that's another cool feature if you just wanted to add some calc points in and adjust the size to whatever you wanted it to be. Maybe it's a whiteboard. If you had the whiteboard in 3D, you could just stamp it, but here's another way to add calc points at a smaller size. I'm going to go ahead and delete that so that I can talk about materiality. Materiality is this little paint bucket icon over here. When I open this up, I go to my IES defaults, and you can see that it's highlighting the geometry within the space. So I can see what came in as a wall with this 50% reflectance, or a floor, or a ceiling. But I can change these if I want to. I can change them en masse and just select all of them and change them to a different reflectance. But I also have the ability to change surfaces individually. So I can go into this generic material library, go to an opaque surface. I can pick this aluminum green, and I get this paint bucket here where I can paint that onto a surface. Now that surface is aluminum green, but I can also edit this material and change the reflectance of it. And I can also change the color of it by selecting this color up in the upper left corner. I can enter an RGB value, or I can just select a color here, pick it, hit enter, and I can change my reflectance to whatever I want that color to be. And once I hit save, now that wall is blue. So I'll go ahead and run another rendering so you can see what that looks like with that blue wall. So we've covered illuminance grids, light fixtures, being able to do simple modeling within LightStanza, materiality. I'll also talk just briefly about layers. So these are all of the Revit categories that came in from Revit. You can see as I move over them, it highlights them. I can turn things off here if I want to from, maybe I brought in too much from Revit. and I want to optimize my calculation speeds. So I can turn those things off here just by checking them and unchecking them. I can turn them off and on. So we try and give you the maximum amount of flexibility, even if you brought in too much data, to pare that data down once you're in LightStanza. Within LightStanza, I can also create viewpoints. Once I go to a view like this, it's as simple as hitting this plus button. Now that viewpoint is saved. As I create multiple viewpoints, I can just go back and select and move between them very easily. We also bring in site information for your project. When it comes in from Revit, it will come in with the latitude, longitude, and building orientation from Revit, which for electric lighting, you may wonder why that's useful, but we can also run daylighting calcs within the same electric lighting calc. It's as simple as hitting this daylight button. Once I hit that, you can see now we've got a sky outside. And now that that's selected, I can do some things like run my lead calculations for daylighting on the same building. So I'm going to go up here, go up to calculate. I can run a full lead scorecard, pick my lead version with my options, select my blinds on or off, and I can run daylighting calcs on my electric lighting calcs, which is just another really powerful tool with LightStanza. So it looks like these are finishing up running. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. These are my calculation results. But this is really great, but I also want to send these calculation results back to Revit. Maybe I have to do that for a particular client. Maybe I want to send my emergency calculation points back to Revit for compliance for different jurisdictions. I know Title 24 requires that. So I'll go to View Report, and we have this Send Calc Points to Current Revit View. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right view that I want those calc points to go to. I am. I want them to come to this plan view. So I'll hit this button, go back to Revit, and now my calc points have been placed in Revit as an overlay. And I can select those here, I can delete them, I can move them around, I can do what I need to do. So this is that link between Revit and LightStanza. That link has been maintained, which allows us to send information back and forth. Earlier I talked about send changes. So if I change the location of a few fixtures here in the Revit model, I'm going to be moving this over a diffuser, which you would never do. But if I go back to my LightStanza menu, now send changes is highlighted here. So instead of sending this whole Revit model back into LightStanza, I just hit the send changes button. And now when I go back to LightStanza, you'll see that those two fixtures have moved over. So again, we have this link established with Revit, which allows us to do some pretty amazing things. Our rendering is finished, so I'll go over to View Report. Again, just amazing amount of information and geometry here. Our casework with our handles. If you look at the glass, you can see reflectances of the objects in this room. That's because there's a specularity applied to this glass. So we give you some amazing renderings because you're using this BIM geometry. My blue wall rendering is finished, so I'll go ahead and view that report. Here you can see it's very similar. It's just now incorporated that blue wall into the rendering. Another thing that we allow you to do within LightStanza is edit your IES files. We give you the ability to edit your output, but also the IES file dimensions in relation to your BIM geometry. That's as easy as right-clicking here and then going over to View, Edit IES File. Here you can see I've got my Revit family. The blue highlight here is the BIM, or I'm sorry, it's the IES file. I can go up to Edit Luminous Dimensions. I could make this IES file 2 feet wide. You can see that that changed there. Or a common thing that people do is now, if this was a linear, they would say, oh, this isn't 4 feet, this is 8 feet. And you can see that that tracks as I change it to 8 feet. Because I changed the length of this fixture, I probably want to change the output of the fixture also. So over here you can see this is the initial lumens from the IES file. You can apply your own light loss factor. If you want to, you can do a light loss factor breakdown and edit the different factors here to get this number. And then we have an output multiplier and our input wattage, and then that tells us our total calculated output in lumens. Because I changed this fixture from 4 foot to 8 foot, I'm probably going to double the output. So I would just come over here to my output multiplier, change that to 2 because the length doubled. You can see that the input wattage changed so that my lighting power densities remain accurate. And if I go up here to my calculated output, that changed, taking my initial lumens times my light loss factor times this output multiplier, and that's what that number is. I'm going to go ahead and change this back into 4 feet. Let's say that this IES file came in too low. My Revit family had the IES file too low compared to my geometry. You can edit the position of the IES file in relation to your light fixture very easily within LightStanza. You can see that I'm lowering it, I'm raising it. I can also move it to the left and to the right. So even if your IES files come in the wrong place, it's really easy to change that within LightStanza. We can also edit the rotation. If it came in at the wrong rotation, you can edit it here and adjust that rotation on the fly. So I know a lot of people have complained that with Illum tools, it's very difficult to edit this type of information within Illum tools. A lot of people just export their families to LightStanza and correct them here because it's so easy to do. In addition to everything that I've just showed you, we also auto-populate a luminaire schedule here. It's under our lighting families menu. If I hit the schedule button, you'll see that I've got my luminaire schedule starting to build. I haven't assigned IES files to these fixtures yet, which is why they're blank. But once this is in, I can go in and edit my descriptions. I can edit my labels. So within LightStanza, we try to give you the maximum amount of flexibility for how you want to edit this information so that you can change it to whatever works best for you and your firm. But I can also send those schedules into Revit. So if I go to my view report, I've got this send schedules to Revit. If I hit that button, I go back to Revit. It's telling me that these schedules were added. And if I go into Revit and do a search for my schedules, you can see that these LightStanza schedules are created here, and I can drag and drop these onto my sheets. Here's my luminaire schedule. This is what this looks like. I can adjust what information is included here. We also give you, this is the computer-friendly version in a way that the computer would want to read it. We also give you a breakdown of your spaces. So we've got that Explorer room. We've got what level it's on. We've got our square footage, our average foot candles, our max foot candles. We also provide you your lighting power density. So whenever you're going to do your comm check to validate that your design complies with the energy code, you can use this schedule to input things like square footages and lighting power densities to hopefully make that go much faster for you. The last thing that I want to show you is that we can do aiming within LightStanza. I'm going to aim these 2x4s. This is something that you would never do, but I'm going to select this fixture, right click on it, say aim. Maybe I've got a whiteboard on this wall, so I'll select this wall. That whiteboard's probably at about 4 feet above the wall. And you can see that this fixture rotated to aim at that point. I don't just have to aim one fixture at once. I can aim multiple fixtures at once by selecting them. Oops, didn't get that last guy. Sorry about that. Selecting all of them, hitting aim, picking the point that I want them to aim to, and now all of them are aimed. So hopefully that gave you a good overview of what LightStanza is, why it's beneficial for your firm, and then hopefully this demo showed you the workflows, how you can use it, how we integrate with Revit, and how easy it is to send information back and forth between the programs. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@lightstanza.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions for you and also set up a demo. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.